My fiancé cheated with my younger brother in my bed, but when my parents defended him, I cut contact for 3 years. Now they're begging because he abandoned his daughter, and my revenge left them speechless. I'm 30 years old, I work in financial consulting, and it's been like 3 years since I've spoken to my parents or my brother. People always ask me how it's possible to cut contact with your family just like that, but the thing is, it wasn't just like that. It was after something so messed up that it basically destroyed everything I thought was my life. And honestly, I need to tell this story because there are still days when I wake up and wonder if I did the right thing, even though deep down I know I did. I guess I should start at the beginning, or well, how my life was before everything went to hell. I was always the responsible son, you know? The one who got good grades, who got a good job after college, who paid his bills on time and had a perfectly mapped out 5-year plan. My brother Zachary, who's 3 years younger than me, was the complete opposite. Like, he was the charismatic one, the fun one, the one who always had an excuse for everything and somehow always got away with any situation. When we were kids, I was the one who had to take care of him, and when we grew up, I was the one who had to bail him out of trouble. But well, that's supposedly what older brothers do, right? So, like 4 years ago, I met Lauren at a networking event for my company. She worked in marketing for a medium-sized firm. She was smart, ambitious, pretty, and we hit it off from the start. We dated for 2 years before I proposed, and when she said yes, I honestly thought everything in my life was falling into perfect place. You know, work was going well. I had a decent house that I'd bought on my own, and now I was going to marry the woman I loved. We planned the wedding for 2 months after I got promoted to senior manager at my firm because I wanted to have the finances completely stable before the marriage. The problem started. I mean, I didn't know it was a problem at the time, but it started when Lauren lost her job like 6 months before the wedding. Her company did. Massive layoffs, and she was out. At first, she was devastated, obviously, but I told her not to worry, that I could cover everything while she looked for something new. I told her to take her time, to find something she really liked, and in the meantime, I worked double hours to make sure we had enough money for the wedding and for day-to-day expenses. Lauren started looking for work. Yeah, but she also enrolled in a pottery class at a local studio because she said she needed to do something creative so she wouldn't go crazy being at home all day. It seemed fine to me, honestly, anything that kept her busy and happy. What I didn't know, because literally nobody mentioned it to me until later, is that Zachary had also enrolled in that same pottery class. My brother, who had never shown the slightest interest in art or in anything that required patience and concentration, suddenly was taking pottery classes. When I found out later, he said it had been pure coincidence, that a friend had invited him and he didn't even know Lauren was going to be there. But looking back, I don't know if I believe him, because the things that happened after were too planned, too deliberate to be just a coincidence. Then this thing started happening where Zachary was visiting our house much more often, like, before I saw him maybe once a month, and suddenly he was there 2 or 3 times a week. He said he was passing through the area, that he wanted to see how the wedding preparations were going, that Lauren was helping him with something or another. And I, like an idiot, thought it was great that my fiancé and my brother were getting along so well. My mom, Helen, even commented on how nice it was that the family was so close. I was working late almost every day because I had a huge project at the company, and I needed it to come out perfect before the wedding. So many times I'd get home and Zachary was there with Lauren, watching movies or eating something they'd cooked together. I'd join them, we'd chat for a bit, and then Zachary would leave. Everything seemed completely normal, until it stopped being normal. It was a Tuesday. I remember it perfectly because I was supposed to be away on a business trip until Thursday. I had a really important meeting with some clients in another city, but it turns out one of the clients got sick and they canceled everything at the last minute. They told me when I was already at the airport waiting for my flight, so I just went back home. It was like 3 in the afternoon, and I thought about calling Lauren to let her know I was on my way. But I decided to surprise her. Like, show up with some food and spend the afternoon together since I unexpectedly had free time. I got to the house, and Zachary's car was parked outside. It didn't seem weird to me at first. I thought they had plans to do something, and maybe I could join them. I opened the door with my key, left my suitcase in the entrance, and I heard noises coming from the second floor, from our bedroom. And they weren't normal conversation noises. They were, you know. At first, my brain wasn't processing what I was hearing. I honestly thought maybe Lauren was watching a movie or something. But then I heard her voice, clear and distinctive. And I heard Zachary's voice too. And my whole body froze. I went up the stairs, and I swear every step felt like I was walking in slow motion. I opened the bedroom door, and there they were, in my bed, in the sheets that I had changed that very morning before leaving. Lauren screamed. Zachary froze for half a second before trying to cover himself, and I don't know what went through my head in that moment. I think everything turned red. I literally felt like something in me broke in a physical way. The next thing I remember is that I was on top of Zachary, hitting him in the face over and over and over, and Lauren was screaming and trying to pull me off, and I could only think that my brother, my own brother, was fucking my fiancée in my house, in my bed. I broke Zachary's nose. I know because it started bleeding everywhere, and he was crying and saying, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." But I couldn't stop until Lauren literally hung onto my arm with all her weight. I pulled away. I stood up, and I saw them both there, pathetic and naked and with faces of terror, and I told them, "You have 10 minutes to get dressed and get out of my house or I'm calling the police." Lauren tried to talk to me, tell me we could talk about this, that she'd explain, but I just repeated, 10 minutes, and I left the bedroom. I stayed downstairs, sitting in the living room, shaking from head to toe, while I listened to them moving around the house, collecting their things. Lauren came down first, crying, telling me, "Please, Nicholas, please, listen to me," but I didn't even look at her. Zachary came down after, still bleeding, and had the nerve to tell me, "Brother, I never wanted this to happen." And I told him, "Go to hell, don't ever talk to me again." They left, and when I heard the door close, I broke down. I cried like I hadn't cried since I was a kid. There alone in my living room, surrounded by the silence of my house that suddenly felt completely empty and contaminated. The first thing I did after calming down a bit was call my parents. My mom answered, and when I told her what had happened, there was a really long silence on the other end of the line. Then she said, and I literally quote her exact words, "Well, Nicholas, these things happen. Surely there's an explanation. You can't just attack your brother like that." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I told her, "Mom, I found them in bed. What explanation can there be?" And she said, "Well, maybe Lauren was confused. Maybe Zachary made a mistake, but that doesn't mean you should break up the family over this." My dad, Edward, took the phone at some point and basically told me the same thing. That I needed to calm down. That these things could be resolved by talking. That Zachary was my brother and that family was forever. I hung up. I blocked their numbers. I blocked Lauren's number and Zachary's. I called my best friend, told him everything, and he came immediately to stay with me that night because honestly, I didn't trust what I might do if I stayed alone. The next few days were a blur. I canceled the wedding, which was an administrative and emotional nightmare. I lost the deposit on the venue. I had to call all the guests, return gifts that had already started arriving. I changed the locks on my house. I packed all of Lauren's stuff in boxes and left them at the door of her apartment with her mom. Like 2 weeks after all this, Lauren sent me a text message from a new number asking me to meet her to talk. I didn't want to, obviously, but she insisted and insisted, and finally I agreed to see her at a public cafe because I needed to close this somehow. I went prepared to hear her excuses, her pleas, her promises, that it had been a mistake, and that it would never happen again. What I didn't expect was for her to arrive with Zachary. They sat across from me, both with serious faces, and Lauren started talking. She told me she was very sorry, that she had never wanted to hurt me, but that she and Zachary had developed real feelings for each other. That they had tried to resist, but they couldn't deny what they felt. That it was true love. I wanted to laugh, or throw up, I wasn't sure which, but then Lauren said something that left me completely frozen. "I'm pregnant, and it's Zachary's." She was like 3 months along, she said. 3 months. Which meant she had been sleeping with my brother for at least that long, probably more, while I worked like crazy to secure our future together, while we planned our wedding, while I bought her the engagement ring that probably cost Zachary zero effort to get. Zachary had the nerve to say, "We're going to have the baby, and we hope that someday you can forgive us and be part of your niece or nephew's life." I got up from the table and left without saying a single word. What could I say? There was nothing to say. My mom started calling me from different numbers because I had blocked hers. I finally answered one of her calls, and she told me I needed to forgive Zachary, that he was sorry, that he was going to be a father and needed his family's support. I asked her if she had ever considered that I also needed my family's support after my fiancé and my brother betrayed me in the most horrible way possible. She said something about how I was the oldest, that I should be the most mature, that these things happen and that family should stay together. I told her that if family meant defending him, no matter what he had done, then I no longer wanted to be part of that family. She started crying and saying I was being cruel and selfish, and I just hung up. It was at that moment that I decided I needed to get out of that city completely. I couldn't keep living in a place where at any moment I could run into Lauren, Zachary, my parents, people who would ask me what had happened with my wedding. I applied for transfers within my company, and thank God there was an open position at the office in another city like 6 hours away. It was a promotion, actually, to regional director, so I didn't even have to think about it much. I sold my house, he couldn't keep living there anyway, packed my stuff, and moved. The first few months in the new city were weird. Like, I missed my old life, but at the same time I felt like I could breathe for the first time in months. Nobody here knew my story. Nobody looked at me with pity or curiosity. I could just be Nicholas, the new regional director, without all the baggage of betrayal and family drama. I focused completely on work, made new friends, started dating people casually without looking for anything serious. For the first time in my life, I was living just for me, without worrying about family expectations or responsibilities toward others. And honestly, it felt liberating. Like a year passed. A year in which I didn't speak even once with my parents, or with Zachary, or obviously with Lauren. I blocked everything related to them on social media. I asked my friends not to tell me anything about them. I knew from my friend that Lauren had had the baby, a girl they had named Sophia, but that was all I knew and all I wanted to know. I was building my new life and honestly thought I had left all that behind. Then, one Saturday afternoon, someone knocked on my apartment door. I wasn't expecting anyone, so when I opened it and saw Lauren standing there with a girl like 2 years old in her arms, I almost had a heart attack. Lauren looked terrible, as if she hadn't slept in weeks, with huge dark circles and clothes that looked old and worn out. The girl, Sophia, I guess, was crying. Lauren told me, "Nicholas, please, I need your help," and I just looked at her, not knowing what to say. I asked her how she had gotten my address, and she said she had begged one of our mutual friends until they finally gave her the information. I told her I had nothing to talk to her about and started to close the door, but she put her foot to prevent it and started talking very fast. That Zachary had left her, that he had gone off with another woman when Sophia was barely 6 months old, that she didn't have a job, that she didn't have money, that she had been evicted from her apartment, that she had nowhere to go, that she needed money, just a little to start over, that she would pay me back everything, that please help her for Sophia's sake. I stood there not knowing what to do. Part of me felt something. I don't know if it was pity or just shock, but another part of me, the part that had been healing for the past year, was telling me this wasn't my problem, that she had made her choices and now had to live with the consequences. I told her I was sorry, that I couldn't help her, and she started crying and begging me, saying that Sophia was innocent in all this, that she wasn't to blame for anything. Then I heard footsteps in the hallway, and my mom, Helen, appeared, walking toward us as if she had every right to be there. Turns out Lauren had called her and told her where I lived, and my mom had come as if it were some kind of planned ambush. My mom looked at me and told me, "Nicholas, you have to help them. It's your family responsibility." And I literally laughed in her face. I told her, "My responsibility? Where was my family when they betrayed me in the worst possible way? Where was my family when I needed support?" And she started with the same old speech, that Zachary was my brother, that Sophia was my niece, that family helps each other no matter what. I told Lauren to wait a moment. I went into my apartment, took out like $2,000 in cash that I had saved for emergencies, gave it to her and told her, "This is all you're gonna get from me. Don't contact me ever again." My mom started saying that wasn't enough, that I had a good job and could do more. But I just told her, "Either you leave now or I'm calling the police for trespassing." They left. Finally, and I stood there at my apartment door, shaking again, like that time a year ago. But this time it was different. But this time, I didn't feel devastated or broken. I felt pure rage. Rage. Because even after everything that had happened, my family still expected me to be the one to fix Zachary's messes. Rage because my mom could show up in my new life, in my safe space, and demand things from me as if she had any right. And that's when I decided I needed to close this once and for all, but on my terms. I hired a private investigator. Yeah, I know. It sounds dramatic, but I needed to know what was really going on. I needed all the information before making any decisions. The investigator found Zachary in like 3 days. He was living in a small town, 2 hours from our original city, in a nice house, with a woman who clearly had money. The investigator said she owned a successful real estate business. Zachary was working at a music store, selling guitars or something, basically living his life without any consequences for having abandoned his daughter. I drove to that town one Saturday morning. I found the house, knocked on the door, and when Zachary opened it, the face he made was pure terror. He didn't expect to see me, obviously, and especially not there. I told him we needed to talk, and he came out to the porch, closing the door behind him, probably so his new woman wouldn't hear. I asked him directly if he knew that Lauren and his daughter were basically living on the street. He went pale and started with excuses, that Lauren wouldn't let him see Sophia, that it had been a toxic relationship, that he had had to distance himself for his mental health, all the typical justifications of someone who knows they screwed up but doesn't want to admit. Cake it. I told him I didn't give a damn about his mental health or his excuses, that he had decided to have a daughter, that he had destroyed my life and Lauren's in the process, and that now he had a girl who was his responsibility, existing without his support. I told him he had 2 options. Either he started paying child support and being a present father even minimally, or I, personally, was going to make sure his new woman knew exactly what kind of person he was and expose all his shit to whoever necessary. Zachary started crying, which surprised me because he had always been the charismatic type who could talk his way out of any problem. He told me he had never wanted things to end up like this, that he loved Sophia but didn't know how to be a father, that everything had been a giant mistake. And that's when I finally told him what I had wanted to tell him for over a year, that he had literally had everything, my trust, our family's love, Lauren, and that he had destroyed it all, through pure irresponsibility and selfishness, and that I was no longer going to be the person who cleaned up his messes. I left there without waiting for any response from him. I don't know if he ever did anything for Sophia. Honestly, I don't care. I did what I felt I had to do, confront him, and make it clear that his actions had consequences. But what he decided after that was no longer my problem. I called Lauren's number from a burner phone, left her a voicemail with Zachary's address and phone number, and told her what she did with that information was up to her. I blocked that number too. My mom tried to contact me several times after that, sending me letters and messages through other people. In one of the letters, she said, I had changed, that I had become cold and cruel, that the family she knew would never have done what I did. And maybe she was right. Maybe I did change. But it was her and my dad and Zachary who changed me. They decided that my pain didn't matter, that my betrayal was less important than keeping family peace, that I should forgive and forget, while they continued, without acknowledging that what happened was completely wrong. I didn't respond to any of her letters. I changed my phone number again, this time making sure literally nobody from my old life had access to it. I told my friends that if any member of my family contacted them looking for me, not to give them any information. I basically became a ghost to them. It's been almost 3 years since all that. I'm 33 now, still in the same city, in the same job that I like. I've been dating someone for like 6 months. Someone who doesn't know the whole story yet, but knows I have a complicated relationship with my family. Maybe someday I'll tell them everything. Or maybe not. I'm still deciding how much of my past I want to be part of my present. Sometimes, I wonder if I made the right decisions. If I should have forgiven. If I should have been more compassionate. If I should have helped Lauren and Sophia more. But then I remember how it felt to find my fiancé and my brother in my bed. I remember how my mom immediately defended Zachary without even asking how I was. I remember all the times they asked me to sacrifice my peace of mind for the well-being of people who never did the same for me. Last week I was having coffee at my favorite place here in the city, and a little girl with her mom sat at the table next to mine. The girl was like 4 years old, maybe 5, and honestly it made me think about Sophia. I wondered how she is, if she's okay, if Zachary finally took responsibility, or if Lauren found some way to get by on her own. I felt a pang of something. I don't know if it was guilt or just sadness, but then I remembered that I did everything I could have reasonably done. I gave money. I confronted Zachary. I gave Lauren the information to contact him. The rest wasn't my responsibility to carry. I don't know if I'll ever talk to my parents or Zachary again. Part of me thinks maybe when they're much older, when all this is ancient history, maybe we can have some kind of superficial relationship, but another part of me, the bigger part, thinks it's okay this way, that some wounds are so deep that trying to heal them only makes them worse, that it's okay to set boundaries, even with family, especially with family that hurt you in ways you can't forgive. My life now is quiet, stable, mine. I don't have the constant drama. I don't have people demanding things from me that I don't owe them. I don't have to carry the consequences of other people's terrible decisions. And honestly, that's enough. Maybe it sounds cold or selfish, but after everything that happened, I think I earned the right to be a little selfish with my own peace of mind. And if that makes me the villain in the version my family tells, I guess I can live with that.